All right. Good morning, everybody. All right, everyone's on mute. All right. So we got to the Mishnah. Today is Daf Lamed Ches in Maseches Eruvin. We're going to try and do a blot and a half to make up for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. This is going to be, I guess, 3 blot between them. So that's 6 days of doing a blot and a half. So they will be, I guess, day number 1 of getting through that. And that's before you even start dealing with sukkahs. So, all right. Mishnah says, third line from the top, Lamed Ches Mad Aleph, Rabbi Eliezer Omer. We have to remember this is going to be a very important shita we're going to discuss throughout the day. So let's remember this shita. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Yantov Hasamach LaShabbos, Beim Lefanav Ben Lecharel. We're talking about a 2-day Yantov, whether it's now not our 2-day Yantovs, but rather Shabbos into Shabbos then Yontif, in other words, Saturday, Sunday, or even Friday, Saturday, Yontif then Shabbos. So Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Yontif Hasamach LaShabbos, Beim Lefanav Ben Lecharel. Ma'ariv Adam Shnei Eruvin. You need 2 separate Eruvin, 2 different Kedushas, as we're going to call it. All right? V'aymer, and he says, take 2 Eruvin, V'aymer Ervi B'rishon, L'mizrach, V'shen L'marav. If he wants, he can say, my Eruv on the day 1 is going to be in the east, and day 2 is in the west, V'rishon L'marav, V'shen L'mizrach, or day 1 is in the west, and day 2 is in the east. He can switch it up. Eruve Berishon V'sheni Kibnei Ir, or he says my Eruv is only going to work for the first day, but for the second day I'm going to be, I'm going to take my shvisa in the Malcolm, the regular with the city, with the people of the city, or Eruve V'sheni, or my Eruv will only work for my shvisa on the second day because I got to go, I got to walk somewhere far on the second day. However, Rishon the first day Kibnei Iri, but like the people of my city were residing. That is the opinion of Rebbe Eliezer. Here comes opinion number 2. You can either do one direction or no directions, right? Either an Eruv for 2 days or no Eruv at all. You don't split it up, okay? Here's the second opinion. The second opinion is basically it's one Kedusha, one long Eruv, Tchumen, right? We're talking about Eruv Tchumen, right? In other words, to establish your Shvisa for Shabbos, right? So one tchum works for both days. So in other words, if I set it outside there, that's going to be my center point, and I can move 2,000 amos from that spot for both days, but I can't switch it off. I can't, pick and choose. So Kate said, Yasa, what should you do? So we saw this a little bit earlier. Go ahead and take your Eruv and put it in place as it's getting dark. Let's say Thursday evening, right? Take it over Thursday evening as it's getting dark, and it turns to night. So now my Shabbos starts. Here is where my Eruv Tchumen is. The night law, then you take it with him, and then takes it with him, I guess, to his home. And then on Friday afternoon, right before Shabbos starts, he'll take it there. We'll have it in the same spot. Night will occur. It will become a Shabbos, and here is his Erev Tchumen. Then he can eat it there. And then takes it with him, then he comes back. The Nimsa turns out right? He's rewarded with his walking because basically he's able to establish a second day to use that spot for his Eruv. And also he's rewarded with his Eruv, i.e. he gets to eat his Eruv. However, let's say it is eaten on the first day. Let's say it gets consumed. In other words, according to the Chamim, it gets consumed on day 1. Now, till now, remember the Chamim say it's one time, right? So one Eruv covers everything. But Nechel, Berishon, Eruva, Larishon, Eruv, L'Sheni. But if it gets destroyed or eaten on day 1, it does not apply to day 2. In other words, that which you say it's only one Kedusha, it doesn't necessarily mean that once you do it for Thursday evening, it automatically counts for Friday evening. It means you have no other choices but to use that one. All right, you have no choice. And if it gets eaten, and then wherever you are, that's your makom. And Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Ma'idim Atemli Shehein Shtei Kedushas. So Rabbi says, aha, you see, if it gets eaten on day 1, and it's not around for day 2, then you don't have your Eruv in that spot anymore because it was consumed. So what do you see? It's 2 different Kedushas. It's like 2 different days, and you can't do one day to the other, right? So according to me, Rabbi Eliezer will say, yeah, therefore that's the reason why I can go ahead and pick and choose. And day 1, I'll put in the east, and day 2, I'll put in the west, and therefore that works. So that was the machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Now let's see the Gemara. Zog to Gemara. So the Chachamim said, you can either go l'ruach achas. So what does it mean? One direction. It means for both days. So then it says they can do it only for either 2 days or no days. So Shnei Yamim, what's that? It means one direction. Hainu Kamaisa, isn't that all the same thing? What's the Rabbanim saying? So Hachi Kamar Le Rabbanan Le Rabbi Yezer. This is what the Rabbanan are saying to Rabbi Yezer. Iya Tamaida She'ein Ma'arvin LeYoyim Echad Chasiv L'Tzafam Chasiv Darum. Right? Do you guys not admit? You, Rabbi Yezer, do you agree with me that let's say it's one day? Right, Shabbos. Can I have for one Shabbos, right, 12 hours in the north and then change over my tchum to 12 hours in the south, even if I set it up before Shabbos. He can't do that. He says, yeah, okay, I agree with you. So just like in the one day, you can't go ahead and switch it. It's halfway from the south to the north. So too, the same way, you can't have for 2 different days, right? One day to the east and one day to the west. And Rabbi Yezer, says, no, Hasam, Kedusha Achas. Over there, it's one Kedusha, it's one day Yontif, one day Shabbos, right? So that's the reason why you can't switch it. However, Hacha Beis Kedushas. Over here, we're talking about 2 different Kedushas, and therefore, since they're 2 different Kedushas, you can't compare, and you could do one in the east and one in the west. And Amr Lahen, and he says to Rabbi Yezer, and Rabbi furthermore says, Shem Erev Beraglov. Now we're going to see another type of Erev, right? One way of Erev is establishing one's Shvisa, his Malkam Shvisa for Shabbos, is he goes out and he puts food, right? We talked about a food in a place, a certain amount of food, and that's his center, and he can go 2,000 amos, in each direction. Now let's say he just goes to a place, and when Shabbos starts, he's in that place. That's called beraglov, right? He's making an erev tchumen with his legs, with his feet. That's where he's at when Shabbos starts. So this is going to be his makom, right? So we say, she'im erev beraglov. So we say, so if he goes ahead and if he for the first day. So once again, we're talking about the 2 days yontif. If he goes ahead and makes his erev beraglov with his feet, he goes over there, b'yam rishon, ma'arev beraglov b'yam sheni, and then he can go ahead and make an erev also on the second day. He can go to another place and make that his makom shvisa. And nechel eruva b'yam rishon, ein yotzelav b'yam sheni. So nechel eruva rishon, ein yotzelav b'yam sheni. And you guys also agree that if he had an eruv with food, right, that if it was eaten right on the first day, then he can't go out of the second day. He says, yeah. So so you see clearly, if you agree with me that you're allowed to go ahead and you establish right with your legs in 2 different, you have to go in 2 different places, and also you agree that if it gets eaten after the first day, that you can't use the second day. You too, Chachamim, also must agree that it's considered to be 2 different kedushas. The Rabbanan, the truth is, really the Rabbanan are misapik. They're in doubt as to whether it's 1 or 2. And therefore each goes to Chumrah. To say, go over here, we require you to make an erev for both days. So we do it because maybe it's 2 days, and therefore we require you to go ahead and go to the erev the same spot and make an erev both days. Because Chumrah, it might be 2 different days, so therefore go ahead and do it. And they also go to Chumrah that if it gets lost after day 1, that you're now allowed to go ahead and use it for day 2. So therefore they go to Chumrah both cases. So Amr Lo, Rabbi Yezer said, Rabbi Yezer, so do you not agree that you don't go ahead and make an erev from the beginning of Yontif for Shabbos, right? In other words, that doesn't cover both days, right? Yontif l'Shabbos. So it's true. So it must be. What's the reason why over there, right? Because therefore it must be. Is it because that it's considered to be one kedusha, right? Since over here that it can't go ahead and be covered for both days, right? So what do you see over there? Because it's kedusha achas. So he says to him, right? So now you need 2 of them, right? So since you don't 2 of them, you just don't make 1, so you make 2. So obviously it's right. So it's right. That's true. It's not because it's 1 kedusha, right? Rather, the reason why you can't do one to the other, you need 2 of them, right, is because it's considered to be hachana, right? Here's hachana, the new thing. Now, in other words, you're doing something on Friday for the purposes of Saturday, and therefore that's called hachana. So the reason why you can't do on Yontif, the tchum, I will soon see, is because you're doing hachana for the next day, right? We're not discussing erev tafshilin. We're not discussing any of that now. Right now, we're assuming none of that is applies right now, and therefore there is no hachana. You're not allowed to go ahead and prepare from one day to the other. So we'll have to see how the eruv takes place. Now, Tana Rabban, eruv v'ragla b'yam rishon, ma'arev v'ragla b'yam sheni. If a person makes an eruv on day 1, right, by using his legs, in other words, by going to a certain spot and using that, then then the second day he also does that. And nechol eruva b'yam rishon, if his eruv was consumed on the first day, ein yotzelav b'yam sheni, then he can't go ahead and use it on day 2. Divrei Rebbe, that's the opinion of Rebbe. And Rabbi Yehuda says, so according to Rebbe, let's just point out, right? So Rebbe says that it's 2 different days, because if it gets eaten on one, that's another. So therefore, Rebbe holds clearly it's 2 different days. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Harei hu chamar gamal, right? He's a person who's leading a donkey and a camel, right? When you lead a donkey, you stand behind a donkey, right? 1 second. A camel, right? You lead a camel? No, I think you
stand next to the donkey and lead the camel.
Right, you lead a camel, stand behind the donkey, right? So not next, you might get kicked, right? So in other words, one's in front and one's in back, and you're in the middle, right? That's what we're discussing. So basically, according to Rabbi Yehuda, basically you can only go to spots, since it's a suffix, you can only go to spots that are covered by both, with or without the new tchum, right? So in other words, only the areas where they overlap. That's the area. So Rabbi Yehuda says, L'chumra, well, he doesn't know whether it's considered to be 1 kedusha or 2 kedushas, and therefore, if it gets consumed, we're not going to allow you to use only use the second one, but you can't only the first one, so we don't know, only the area that's overlapped. And Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Shua ben Osha, Rabbi Yechim Baraka Omim, Erev Baragla Barishon, Eimar Baragla B'Sheni. He says clearly it's 1 kedusha, or they say, excuse me, 2, Rabbi Shimon ben Osha, Rabbi Yocha, and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, they both say, Erev Baraglav Barishon, Eimar Baragla B'Sheni. Right? You don't have to go ahead and do it on the second day. He can still use it. As long as he had it on day 1, it covers both days. So you see clearly, right, this is the most, right, the strict opinion we've seen till now, that they hold it throughout. It's 1 kedusha. All you got to do it is, let's say, Thursday evening, and it covers, all of day Friday and all of day Saturday. Amar Rav, and now it says Rav, halacha kedal zakanim holu. The halacha is going to be like the following 4 zakanim, which we're going to mention. Va'aliba, the Rebbe Eliezer, and basically those 4 are like Rebbe Eliezer, the Amar, Beis Kedushos Hay. It's considered to be, even though it's 2 days yontif next to each other, it's considered to be 2 different kedushas, and you have to establish 2 different eruvin on the 2 places if you want to use an eruv tchumen, right? No, you can't just, the one does not cover the other. Each one is its own kedusha, and each one requires its own eruv.
I have a question. Sorry.
Yes.
So we could only make it for 1 day. So if Yontif precedes Shabbos, that's a 2-day period, correct?
Right.
And that's not acceptable? You can't do it before Yontif?
So what you have to do is, before Yontif, right, Thursday evening, you establish your Eruv in a spot for Thursday evening. Then take it back, and then on Friday evening, as it's getting dark, you establish a second spot that will be used for Friday night, Saturday. But you don't say... What?
Do you have to be within a certain distance of your first Eruv or no?
Good question. We're going to see that too. So obviously, it can't be outside the tchum of the first, right? Because you can't travel to put in that space,
which is
right?
1,000. That tchum became 1,000, correct?
Well, it's 2,000, right? You have 2,000 each direction.
From your established Eruv, right?
Right. So, but you can't go outside the first 2,000. We're going to see that if he sets them up before, that he has to be, attainable from one to the other.
But the argument here is just whether he has to go on that Friday Erev Shabbos and move that. Is that correct?
Right. And even if it's use the same space, right? Now, once again, if a person's just staying in his home and he's using his home as a center, he doesn't need to do anything, right? We're talking about a person who wants to travel a certain space. Let's say his best friend lives right outside the town. In order to go there, he has to set up a tchum. So now, does he just have to do that tchum Thursday evening, and I can go and travel on Friday and Saturday? Or do I need to establish that tchum on Thursday evening and once again establish it again on Friday evening? That's the machlokas here.
Got it.
Now, so says Rav. So 4 people say the same thing, and who are these 4? They Elaine Dalzakanim, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Shua ben Osha, Rabbi Yochanan Broka, which is actually the last 2 opinions in the Brisa, which actually said the opposite, and we're going to point out. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yesi, Rabbi Yehuda. Stimasa. And some say Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yesi, Bar Yehuda, who said it, I guess, in a stam. And some have Chaminayu, Rabbi Elazar, some I guess remove Rabbi Elazar from this 4. Umapik Rabbi Yesi, Rabbi Yehuda. Excuse me. Some insert Rabbi Elazar, Umapik Rabbi Yesi, Rabbi Yehuda, Stimasa. And some include Rabbi Elazar and exclude Rabbi Yesi, Bar Yehuda. Anyways. Going back, so the question about the first 2. Rabbi Shmuel ben Bar, Rabbi Yochanan ben Baroko. They said the opposite, right? In our Mishnah, they said all you got to do is 1, right? They didn't say you have to do 2 like Rabbi Eliezer. They said the exact opposite. He says you don't even need it to set up 2 lechatchila. So Gemara says if Chashminu is opposite, so ipuch, switch it around. right? In other words, they held, no, you need to do 2 just like that. So, if that's the case, Hana Rebbe, that's the first case where we had 3 opinions. We had Rebbe Yehuda was Safek, so Rebbe says 2 days, right? 2 days, 2 Kedushas. Rebbe Yehuda was the Safek, right? He was the one, the camel and the donkey, right? And the third opinion, we said switch it around, also is 2 days. So if 2 days, 2 days, the same as Rebbe. So Hainu Rebbe. Ema, v'chein Amar Rabbi Shimon Gamliel v'chulei. Say, don't say Rabbi Shimon Gamliel argued. Said v'chein, so too Rabbi Shimon Gamliel and Rabbi Yishmael b'no shel Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka agreed with Rebbe. There was 2 kedushas. So if Rebbe said it's 2 kedushas, v'lichshav nami Rebbe. Why don't you include Rebbe in this? We just said Dalet Zakanim said it's 2 kedushas like Rebbe Eliezer. So why don't you say it's Chamisha Zakanim and include Rebbe in that list because Rebbe just said it's 2 different kedushas. Each day needs its own eruv. So Rebbe Tanai Lev V'lo Savarle. So Rebbe just taught it. However, V'lo Savarle. He didn't hold that way. He didn't necessarily hold that way. But he taught that was a limus. Rabbanan Nami Tanai Luhu V'lo Savarle. Maybe they also just taught it without holding that way. So Rav Gomer, Rav Gemara Gamila. So Rav had a tradition that indeed that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel and Rabbi Yishmael both agreed with that which they stated, that the halacha is that it's considered to be 2 days. And Kinach Nafshe de Rav Huna, and when Rav Huna passed away, he wanted to go ahead and point out a contradiction in the words of Rav. So Miyama Rav halacha kedal zakenim, v'alibed Rav Eliezer davar shtei kedushas hein. Does the halacha? Did Rav say the halacha is like the 4 zakenim? Who said basically according to Rabbi Eliezer that's considered to be 2 kedushas. V'yitamar Shabbos v'yontif. If you have Shabbos v'yontif together, Rav Omar no dabazeh asur bazeh. If something is born on the first day, right? Let's say something is born on Friday, right? A chick was born on Friday. Okay, it's still asur on Saturday as no lot. So what do you see? Now, you're not allowed to have something which is created on that day, no lot, right? So something was born on Shabbos, you can't have on Shabbos. You have to wait till Motzei Shabbos, right? If something was on Friday was born, so then it's fine because it's before Shabbos. So over here, it's saying something was born on Friday, you still can't use it on Shabbos. Why? It must be one long extended time because it's still considered to be 2 kedushas. Then what's good on Saturday is different than Friday. It should be okay, but Rav says also. So Amarabo Hasam Mishum Hachana. Over there, it's nothing to do with the fact that it was no lot. It's not no lot, right? It's fine out, it's no lot. The issue is, it's hachana, right? You were preparing on Yontif, your mezalzel Yontif for Shabbos, right? The egg, which was laid, right, or on Friday is considered to be preparation, once again, without any sort of erev tashilin. The time of the brisa that says v'haya b'yom hashishi is on the 6th day, v'achinu, and you prepare. So chol mechin l'Shabbos. The rule is during a weekday you can prepare for Shabbos. A weekday you can prepare for Yontif. However, Yontif cannot be prepared. You can't prepare on Yontif for Shabbos, and Shabbos cannot go ahead and prepare for Yontif. So Amarle Abaye says Abaye Elo that we learn in the Mishnah. Wait, the Chacham said in our Mishnah, how do you go ahead and do it? What do you do? You go ahead Thursday evening, you wait till it gets dark, the night low, and then you take it with you, ubalo, b'sheni, then you go back Friday afternoon, and you put it in the same spot, then it gets dark, ba'eichlo, then he eats it, ubalo, right? And then he comes back. So I hakam mechavin miyantav l'Shabbos. Wait, how can you go ahead and walk to that spot again on Friday afternoon before it gets dark, in order to have your eruv there and eat it there? If you're walking there, that's hachana, right? You're preparing for Shabbos on Yontif. This is hachana. Why is that not an issue? Right? If you're talking about hachana, right? So Amalei Rabbi, Misvar Sof Yom Hayom Kona, Eruv, Tchilas Hayom Kona, right? Eruv. The Shabbos Mechina Liyaso. Words like this. It's not before Shabbos. When I make the Eruv, I'm not making the Eruv at the end of Friday to basically trigger Shabbos. Basically, the Eruv starts to work after Shabbos starts. Once Shabbos starts, then I have the Eruv there. That's where my makom, my shvisa Shabbos is, right? That's where my makom shvisa is. Okay, so therefore it's a technicality. I'm not making the Eruv. The Eruv doesn't start to work on Friday for Saturday. Opposite. It starts to work already on Shabbos for Shabbos, okay? So we didn't discuss the walking there yet. We just discussed the technicality, how the Eruv works. And if that's the case, there's a halacha, we have a Mishnah later on. The person's not allowed to go ahead and take Trumas or Maaseh on Shabbos, but let's say it's a 2-day Yontif. A person could say, you know what, tomorrow, right? or a person can stipulate that after today, right, it will be taken. So Elamiyata Yarvi Belogin.
What's the
Yeah.
concept of plugging something in that doesn't have electricity? I can plug something in if I know that the timer is going to go on Shabbos.
So you know, if you're saying for preparing,
right? It doesn't start working until the power goes on.
Okay, so let's see. Let's keep that in mind. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So good question. So Elamiyati ever belogin. So what about the case of login over here when he wants to go ahead and basically the Trumas and Maisos will be triggered, right? Once Shabbos starts, that's when it'll be taken. In other words, but he does it from the day before. So why can't you make an Erev then? So my answer is Be'inan Suda Harumi Badya. The requirement that has to be done on Friday before Shabbos is it has to be a fit meal. Since the Trumas and Maisos are only triggers and are taken, right, after Shabbos starts, in other words, that doesn't work. You have to have a meal that's suitable from before Shabbos into Shabbos, and then once Shabbos starts, then the Erev triggers. That's technically how it works. So in other words, it has to be a meal that's already fit before Shabbos. It can't become fit on Shabbos, then become your Erev. It has to be fit before Shabbos and then become then Shabbos will make it your Erev. And in that case, you don't have it. So Eloha, the time we learn in the Mishnah, so what do you mean? So a person has, let's say a person's, whether Shabbos comes before or after, or Yontif comes before or after Shabbos, so a person makes an Erev in two different Erevin. So what do you mean? If I put one all the way in the east and one all the way in the west, right? Each one is 2,000 from the city, but they're not within 2,000 from one another, right? So how can you go ahead and, right, travel there? Right? So the Gemara answers, because it's not fit. Because on Friday, I'm too far from the one that's going to be used on Saturday. So Gemara says, who says that you went ahead and you put it, right, to the extent at the end of 2,000 miles when reachable? All right, the Soif Alpaim Amalakan, the Sof Alpaim Amalakan. No, that's not the case. No, each one was basically 1,000 from where he was, and therefore they're 2,000 from one another. So in other words, that which you put it in different places, one for Friday night and one for Saturday night, or excuse me, Thursday night and Friday night, they were actually reachable to one another. So it was considered to be roi to him before Shabbos, because if it was too far apart and he couldn't walk there, it wouldn't be considered to be fit for use. But since even though they were placed in two different spots, but they were within 2,000 amos of one another, therefore it is considered to be fit for Shabbos. So Elo Hadam Rav Huda Erev Beraglov Yom Rishon Erev Beraglov Yom Sheni. Okay, what about that which Rav Huda says? The person makes an Erev with his feet. In other words, he just goes. He doesn't put food there, but he goes there on Thursday night, and then he goes back and does it on Friday night, right? And but pas b'yom rishon, if he uses bread on day one, then ma'ariv pas b'yom sheni, he can go ahead and use bread on the second day. Ha kamechin miyontev l'Shabbos. Well, what do you mean? How can you go ahead and use bread, right? Isn't that preparing? So really means first the aziv amar. Excuse me, ir pa b'yom rishon, ar pas b'yom sheni. So Gemara says, first of all, how can he walk there? How come mechim yontif l'Shabbos? Isn't he being mechim? Isn't he preparing from yontif l'Shabbos? So Marley misvaras the aziv amar midi. Who says he goes and he says anything, right? The aziv v'shasik the Yosef. He just goes there and he sits. He doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to say any words of preparation on Friday, right? The last moments of Friday, the last moments of Yontif for the purpose of Shabbos. He just has to be there. He could be quiet and not say anything, and that works as his makom shvisa. And Kaman, who is this like? Rabbi Yechim ben Nuri. It's like Rabbi Yechim ben Nuri. The Amar chepzi hefker kind of shvisa. That even something, a chayfetz, an object which is just sitting there, which is hefker, it can acquire that spot. It does obviously objects don't say anything, so anything can acquire its spot without saying anything. So therefore, it's like Rabbi Yechim ben Nuri. Right? And the no. Filo tamer rabbanim eating according to the rabbanim. Ad kan lepligi rabbanim aled Rabbi Yechim ben Nuri el b'yashim. Over there, only mechlokos. If someone was sleeping and Shabbos started, is that considered as makom shvisa? All right. Obviously, if someone was asleep, he doesn't say anything. So it's not the vort is one person says he has to say something, and the other person, well, he didn't say anything, so it doesn't work. Now, rather, the issue was not that he didn't say anything. Even if you don't say anything, it's fine. The problem was El b'yashin. He was sleeping. Delay matzi amar. He was not able. about B'neir, but if he was awake, Diboy Lememar, if you want to go ahead and say, okay, I'm starting my Shabbos here, Matzi Yamar, Afagad Loyamar, Matzi, you can say it. Afagad Loyamar, Kaman Damar Dami. Therefore, even though he didn't say anything, it's like he said something. So therefore, this would be according to everybody. So if a person goes ahead and does and goes to a space, he doesn't have to say anything on the last moments of Friday or Yontif into Shabbos in order for that to be Erev. His presence just have to be there. Fine.
I just want to put a clarification.
Yeah.
Am I able to put 5 Eruvs down, 2,000 amos apart, and be able to walk then 10,000 amos on Shabbos?
No, but you can do if you do within a karfev. A karfev is 70 2/3. That can extend it. It's a good, excellent question, right? Something which is 70 2/3, that keeps extending it. All right, that can extend 70 2/3 amos, right? Which is not a long distance. That extends it. And once again, we're talking about not within the city limits. If we're within the city limits, you can go within the limits, right? I'm not, it's not like if your house is more than 2,000 amos, I can go to your house on Shabbos because we're in the same town, right?
No, only the Eruv.
Only outside, right? The town limits, right? This usually is pretty, obvious as where the town ends and how far it goes out. Now, so it will extend 2,000, even though 2 people overlap or it overlaps, it won't work, right? So you have 2,000 amos for that place unless you have a car pave, right? Unless you go 70 2/3.
All right, so let's take the railroad tracks in Skokie, for example. If I go to the railroad tracks, which is the end of the border of the Eruv, and every 70 and a half, whatever you just called it, amos, if I put a piece of bread, can I walk 1,000,000 amos then? If it's every 70?
Every 70 2/3 you could, yeah, but once again, it doesn't necessarily go regarding the Eruv, right? The Eruv is only for carrying, that's Eruv Chatzeros, right? That's Eruv not for Eruv Tchumen, that's Eruv Chatzeros, right? 2 different things, right? One thing is to combine, right, many private domains to be one domain, therefore I can carry in it. That's one issue. And they just both happen to use the word Eruv, right? And the Eruv is Eruv Tchumen, which talks about the ability to walk beyond one's city limits or town limits on Shabbos. So there's 2 different issues. All right, let's go back. So Amar le Rabba bar Rav Chanan lebayis ihavi shmi le lamar. If he would have heard this, had the time there was in the price, so he probably would have said differently, right? Lo yahalech. What about this halacha, right? And maybe this is bothering you guys. Lo yahalech adam l'seif sadei li yadeh ma yitzricha ki yitzibah. No, the person shouldn't go to the end of his field, right? In order to hire workers, right at the end of Shabbos. And as we just said, a person can't walk to the end of the border at the end of Shabbos, right? Only for Meis Mitzvah, but he can't go to the end of the Shabbos for Malacha for his field. Similarly, lo yatil adam al Pesach Medina, or go to the end of the town in order that right at the Shabbos he'll be able to go into the Merchas, right? Had he heard from this, he would have been chayzer. Why? In other words, even walking to a space is problematic. So how can you tell me I could go ahead and walk to a place and then, the Erev only starts the next day? Isn't my walking to my second makom shvisa, isn't that considered to be hachana? Isn't that preparation? I'm preparing on Friday for Saturday by walking to that area. Why isn't that not considered hachana? However, no, it's not a kasha. Why? Shamalei, actually, he knew that Brisa very well, and he didn't chayzer. Why? Over there, when he goes to the end of the field and to the area where they always hire workers, so it's obvious he was going there to hire workers right at the Shabbos, or he's going right by the merchatz, right by the bathhouse. Obviously, he was going to take a schwitz. However, over here, it's not apparent. He eats him. If he's a tamach chacham, if he's a tamach chacham, say, okay, he's just, he's learning in his head. He's not really paying attention. Or he's walking. He's just walking around aimlessly. And he was a person who's not learned. Maybe he lost his donkey. He's looking for his donkey, and that's why he walked out there. So it's not obvious that he traveled that way. Gufa. So Amar Rav Yehuda Erev Baragla B'Yom Rishon Erev Baragla B'Sheni. The person makes the Erev basically with his feet on the day 1. So that also you make an Erev with your feet on the day 2. Erev Pas B'Yom Rishon. We go ahead and make an Erev with bread on day 1. Erev Pas B'Yom Sheni. Then you go ahead and make an Erev with bread on the second day. Erev Pas B'Rishon. If he goes ahead and he makes an Erev with bread on the first day, Ma'arev Baragla B'Sheni. He's allowed to go ahead and you basically use his feet for day 2. However, Erev Baragla B'Rishon. But if he used his feet and I was the only one to a place on day 1, Ein Ma'arev Pas Sheni. Then you can't go ahead and switch to bread for day 2. So you can always go from bread to bread, from feet to feet, or even feet to bread. or even bread to feet, but you can't go feet to bread. Emer Pass, and we'll soon see why. Emer Pass, B'Sheni, Shein Marvi B'Tchila Pass Erev Pass. So because you can't go ahead and start one, so from one to the other, right? So he said Erev Pass B'Yom Rishon, Ma'ariv Pass B'Yom Sheni. But nevertheless, we said if you make an Erev on the first day and Yom Rishon, you can go ahead and use bread on the second day. So why is that? Why is that not considered to be Hachana? It has to be with the same bread. If you use the same bread, then it's not considered hachana. You're not making bread or getting more bread for the next day. It's not considered to be hachana, right? And Amar Rav Ashi Dikanami, you can also learn because Dikanami must because the Mishnah says Diktani. It says over there, how should a person do it? Malicha Barishon, a person goes ahead and takes his bread right to one place. It becomes dark. The night low, and he takes it with him. And he takes it with him. Why? Because he used the bread the second day. The night low, balo sheni. Then he waits for the second night. Then he brings it back out to him. It gets dark. And he eats it there. Ubalo. Then he comes back. So why did Rabbanan? So according to them, you're allowed to use two different breads, right? There's no. So what do they say? Why do you use two different breads? So Dilma, or you can use two different breads. So why do they say use the same one? So Rabbanan Dilma Hasam Eitz Tova Kamash. Over there it's Eitz Tova. In other words, you might have your bread lost, so therefore don't leave your bread out there the entire night and then just assume that you can go back to the next day and it'll be there. Basically, take it back with you. This way, it won't go missing. Fine. Now your Mishnah. Mishnah says. Rabbi Yehuda Imer, now we're speaking about 2-day Yantif. What about Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah can be a 2-day Yantif in itself, right? 2-day Yantif in itself, right? There was a suffix as to whether the witnesses would come and whether Rosh Hashanah would be on the 30th day or the 31st day. So therefore, they always basically had it as 2 days. Rabbi Yehuda Imer, Rosh Hashanah, Yare Shema Titaber, right? Perhaps it's going to go ahead and be Mubar. In other words, no one's going to go ahead and testify on the 30th day that they saw the new moon, and therefore Rosh Hashanah will only be the next day on day 31. So it's going to be a second day. Ma'ariv Adam Shnei Eruvin. He's go ahead and basically has to put out 2 Eruvin according to Rabbi Yehuda. It's 2 different days, right? V'Aimer Eruv Rishon Lamizach V'Shein Lamari. You could say, okay, my Eruv is on day 1 is in the east, day 2 is in the west. Or Berishon Lamarav, the day 1 is in the west, V'Sheni Lamizach, the day 2 is in the east. And Eruv Rishon V'Sheni K'Be'ir. Or he says my Eruv is only for the first day, but the second day I'll be like the people of the city. Or Eruv V'Sheni. Or maybe my Eruv will only work on the day 2. V'Rishon on the first day K'Be'ir will be like the people of the city. Lo Hodu Lo Chamin. The Chamin said no. 1 is sufficient. So 1 kedusha achas, it's not considered to be 2 kedushas. Oh, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, and furthermore, Rabbi Yehuda, who originally said is like 2 different days, and you have to set up 2 different eruvs. Oh, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Masna Adam al Kalkala b'Yantav Rishon b'Eichel b'Shein. A person go ahead and make a condition right on a basket. In other words, that the Chumas and Ma'asos will be taken off, right? And I will make a condition. If today is really Rosh Hashanah, then tomorrow, then the Chumas and Ma'asos will be taken from, then tomorrow I can eat it. And if tomorrow is really Rosh Hashanah, then the Chumas and Ma'asos will really be removed now, so I can go ahead and have it tomorrow. So a person can make a condition.
Sorry, just before we go on.
Yeah.
If someone eats your Eruv when you get there and you discover your Eruv has been eaten, is it still okay because it was
no,
there?
That was machlokas. That was machlokas before. We said, but if it was eaten, right, according to the one, even according to the Chamim, if it was eaten, then you can't use it for day 2. You could eat it for day 1 because you were there for day 1, but you can't use it for day 2. It's gone.
Well, you can't use it for day 2 anyway, we said.
There was a suffix, but you should, that was the machlokas over there. They said you should do really a second one, just in case. You're required to do a second one.
Okay.
Also over here, and now we say also, also an egg is born on the first day. You can go ahead and eat it the second day, because once again, if the egg was born, if the first day was really Rosh Hashanah, then I'm allowed to go ahead and eat the egg that was born on Rosh Hashanah the day after, because it's already considered Motzei Yantif. And if the day before wasn't Rosh Hashanah, and Rosh Hashanah is really the second day, then it was born on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and therefore it's no problem eating the egg. However, once again, Chachamim did not agree. And Rabbi Daisi, Ben Hirkanus, Aimer, Ha'ayver Lefnei Teva B'Yantav Shal Rosh Hashanah. A person goes before he's davening for the Amud and in Rosh Hashanah. Omer, he says, Hachitzena Hashem Elokeinu es Yom Rosh HaChodesh Hazeh im Hayom im Lamachar. Right? He says on the first day, he says whether Rosh Hashanah, whether it's today or tomorrow, Ulamachar Homer, and then if he's on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, he says Huomer, he says im Hayom im Emosh, if it's today or yesterday. That's what he says on Tfilos. Lo hodu lo chamin. The chamin do not agree with him. Now, really quick, Zak the Gemara. Saman lo hodu lo. So when he said in the Gemara that the chamin did not agree, they said that really Rosh Hashanah is considered like one kedusha. It's not two different kedushas. So it's one kedusha. Who is this shita? Samarav Rabbi Yossi is the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. The time of the Brayso. Manim chamin Rabbi Eliezer. The chamin agree with Rabbi Eliezer. Rosh Hashanah Shahaya Yarei Shemet Yisaber Me'erev Adam. The person is worried that's going to be 2 days, so therefore he's going to make an eruv for two. He makes two eruvim. 2 different days, and therefore the eruv for the first day is in the east, the second day is in the west. Rishon Lamarav, or he says the first day is in the west, the second day is in the east. Or if he says my eruv will work on the first day, but the second day I'll be like the people of the city, or my eruv will be for the second day. And Rishon, but the first day will be like people of the city. And Rabbi, so that was one opinion. That was 2 different days, 2 different eruvs, 2 different kedushas. And Rabbi Yossi Iser. He says, no, Aser, you don't do it. It's one for both, right? One for both. So Amalahan Rabbi Yossi Yatem Maidim Shim Bo Eidim in a Minchol Amalish Nagim Asa Yom Kodesh Macha Kodesh. Well, what do you mean? If witnesses come, they come too late. If they come after the Zman Mincha, we hold that it's already too late, and Rosh Hashanah is going to be the next day, right? This is once again when there was Kiddush HaChodesh, right? But if they came then and said, oh, we saw the new moon last night, and really today is Rosh Hashanah, but they came too late, it's too bad because they came after the Zman, right? So the next day is doing it because they came too late. But don't you agree that we have Kiddush on both days? So if we have Kiddush basically from the end of Mincha through the next day, both days is Kedusha Achas. Right? So what do you see? You see, it's one Kedusha, right? So the answer is no, that's not necessarily true. The reason why over there we do 2 is, in other words, we're not mezalzel chamim. In other words, the mezalzel the edim. In other words, if people basically disregard, if you come too late, we're not going to listen to you and make the rest of the day kadosh, then people won't come in the future. In order to avoid people not, to avoiding coming in the future, we take their words serious, and therefore they said, well, hey, we saw the new moon, we say, great, today is going to be Yontif, but since you came so late, tomorrow's also going to be Yontif, but at least that their words have ramifications, and the rest of the day is Yontif, and therefore it's considered to be 2 Kedushas. All right, we'll stop here. Shkoyach, everybody. Once again, we're just trying to get ahead for Rosh Hashanah so we don't fall behind. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you guys, and be well. Enjoy the weather. Bye-bye.